class, we will focus on the job order costing, which is one of the most common examples of a traditional costing system. If we have a job order costing system, the main characteristic is that given a certain cost object, direct material and direct labor are traced directly to the cost object, while overhead are allocated. So we will discuss in which way the approach through which these overheads are allocated to the final cost object. The name job order costing is the following, and the reason why is because the co-component of a job order costing system is the job, where the job can be a single output, a single unit of our output. For example, if we have large project, it can be an infrastructure, a ship, it can be a building, so something unique which is requested by the customer as a single unit, but we have a job also if we have a batch production. So in both of the cases, if we want to define the value of this output, which can be this unique output or this batch production, we need to assign directly direct material and direct labor while we are allocating the overheads. We can graphically represent the way in which a job order costing system works in this way. Usually we have different departments if we have a batch production, or we can have different phases if we have a unique output request by the customer. For example, assuming that these are the departments, so we have the department 1, the department 2, and then the department 3, where this can also be phases of a certain production process. And then we have that our job, so our single unit of our output or our batch production, enters the department 1 or the activity 1, then it moves into department 2, and then it arrives into the department 3. Of course, we can have even more phases, arriving at the final output in which we have the job that is finally completed. And the same, of course, happens with the other jobs, and so on. What happens in the moment in which we want to calculate the overall cost of our job is that direct material and direct labor are traced in a univocal way within the department to our job. So in the moment in which the raw material is picked up from the warehouse within the department, we can exactly assign the value of our direct material to our job. And the same happens with the direct labor. This is instead not the case for the overheads. If we have the overheads, think for example of the electricity. You receive the bill of the electricity for the entire company, so you cannot know in advance the amount of electricity that is absorbed by each department. You need to assign them by using some rules. So the problem is that you have the overheads that are common to several departments, to several activities, and at the same time they are common to several jobs. So we need to understand how these overheads are split between the different departments and then between the different jobs. If we have a job order costing system, what is used in order to assign these overheads, it is what is defined as job order sheet. This is an example of our job order sheet. So basically every job has a kind of paper in which we can find all of the details of the job itself. In this, usually we have a first part in which we can find general information, for example, the number of the job, the code, the customer, the priority, the date. So all of the characteristics of our output. And then we have some detailed information about the resources which are absorbed. So we will have direct material and direct labor, and as I said, they are not a problem because we can identify exactly the quantity of direct material and the direct labor. So they are traced immediately. We have instead this problem of the allocation once we have the overhead. How we can assign the overhead to the department? By applying the traditional allocation formula. So we simply need to calculate our K, and K will be, assuming that we want to calculate the overhead within the department 1 of our specific job, we will calculate K as the overhead total within, in this case, the department 1, divided by the allocation basis, the total allocation basis within the department 1. Once we have this value, K, we need to calculate the overhead of our job within the department 1. This value will be equal to K, so the result of this formula, that should be multiplied by the allocation basis of our job within the department number 1. So this value will be the value that will enter the overhead within the department 1 of our specific job. And the same formula should be applied for also the other department. Now, let's see with an example how this kind of job order costing system works. Let's assume that we have this situation. We have a batch of 10 bags that is realized. So our job is composed by 10 units of bags. And we know that in order to realize these bags, we have a production process that is composed by 3 different phases. We have the preparation department, the machining department, and then the finishing department. We know that we have machine inside each department, and then we have that the total machine hours within the preparation department is 200 hours. Then we have 250 hours of machine hours within the machining department, and then 100 hours within the finishing department. These are the total number of hours within each department of machine works, of course. Then we have the number of hours for which the machine have been used in order to realize our job of 10 bags. So we need 6 hours of machine working in order to realize the bags within the preparation departments. Then we need 5 hours within the machining department, and then the jobs absorb 4 hours within the finishing department. Then we have some overhead costs. Specifically, we have the cost of the energy, and we already know the value of this overhead within each of the 3 departments. So these are the values. It is required to calculate the overall cost of our job. As I said, direct material and direct labor is something that we know in advance, because in the moment in which the raw material is picked up from the warehouse, we can identify the value, and the same happens within the other departments, so that we have that the total cost of the direct material is 75 euros, summing the value within each department. The same happens with the direct labor. We can identify the time in which the workers are in charge of realizing the bags within each department, so that we can find the total value of the direct labor. We need instead to apply the allocation formula in the moment in which we want to calculate the overhead, so the value of the energy that should be assigned to our specific job. So we already have the value of the energy within each department, but we want to know the portion of this total cost that is assigned to our specific job of 10 bags. We need to apply the formula. So we need to calculate first of all K, where K equals the total overhead divided by the total allocation basis. Let's start from the preparation department, which is the total overhead that we have. The total overhead in the preparation department is 1,000 euros. So we have 1,000 euros divided by the allocation basis. So which can be the quantity that we can use in order to explain the relationship between the energy and the realization of the bags. It can be the machine hours. The more we are using our machine, the higher the energy that is absorbed by our bags. So our allocation basis will be the total number of machine hours. Which are the total number of machine hours within the preparation department? 200. So we have 200 hours, so that we have 5 euros of energy that is absorbed by the machine every hours of work. Once we have this value, we need to calculate the overhead that is assigned to our job, and the formula says that we need to multiply K by the allocation basis of our job. So we will have 5 euros, so this value 5, that should be multiplied by the allocation basis of our job. We need 6 hours of machine hours in order to realize the 10 bags. So if we multiply this by 6 hours, we will obtain 30, and 30 represents the portion of the overhead that is assigned to our job within the preparation department. We need to do the same for the other 2 departments. So what's the value within the machining department? Again, we need to divide the total overhead, so 2,500 euros, divided by the total allocation basis. And we know that in total we are using the machine within the machining department for 250 hours. So that we obtain a value of 10 euros per hour. If we multiply this K of 10 euros per hour by the number of hours of usage of the machine by the job, which is 5 hours, we will obtain 50. That is the portion of the energy which is assigned to our job within the machining department. The same happens, of course, within the finishing department, so we will divide 800 euros, which is the total overhead within the department, divided by the total allocation basis within the finishing department, which is 100 hours. So that we have 8 euros per hour. If we multiply this K by the total number of hours that we need to realize the 10 bags within this department, we have 4 hours, so that we will have 32 euros. You can see that by applying our formula, we are allocating in a proportional way the value of the energy within each department to our specific job. How can we define the total cost of our job? That's simple. If we sum direct material, direct labor, and now if we sum also the value of the overhead, we will have 112 euros, so that we will have 217 euros, and this is the total cost of our job. So we can say that in order to realize our job of 10 bags, we need 217 euros of resources. Of course, if we want to define the value of one bag, we just need to divide this value by the quantity.